how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
To infinity and beyond!
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
It's classified.
You talking to me?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I can't lie!
Expecto Patronum!
Entertainment X.
You never know what you're gonna get.
For this episode, I chat with Jeff Whiting in his new Open Jar Studios. These studios are located at 48th and Broadway, literally in the heart of New York City, at 1601 Broadway. Open Jar Studios is on the 11th and 12th floor of this gorgeous, gorgeous building. The spaces themselves are massive, and the natural light is quite breathtaking, considering you're in Times Square. It really is a wonderful space. If you're in New York City and you need some rehearsal space, check out Open Jar Studios. So Jeff and I discuss his career and the thoughts and ideas that have brought him to the creation of this beautiful rehearsal space. Among different things that he has witnessed among performers in the industry, and it's really quite a lovely, lovely, educating conversation on ways of being. So I hope you enjoy this episode and keep on keeping on. We're back. I'm Clayton Howe, and today with me is Jeff Whiting.
Hello.
Jeff, thank you for sitting down with me today.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Well, and thank you for inviting me into the beautiful Open Jar Studios overlooking the northern part of Times Square, 48th Street and Broadway.
Yes, welcome.
These are beautiful.
Thank you very much. It's been thrilling to see people finally here using the space, and it's exciting to be here with you.
It is. It's going to be really great. And for anyone listening who's in the tri-state and rehearsing or auditioning or anything in between, you should come check this place out. They're stunning.
Thank you.
And I said, we were talking about this. You've pulled the best from every studio that you've worked at.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, in truth, you work in so many different spaces, and we found this amazing location here in Times Square. And I said, well, why don't we create something and sort of put the best of the best, the things that you learn from, places that work well, things that don't work well. So I had this great opportunity to just say, what is the ideal scenario? And I've been lucky to have this place to work with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, and we were talking about this too, like a month ago, about it's like there are parts of this that kind of remind me, and you haven't even been there, I don't think, but the Disney Cruise Line rehearsal facility.
Oh, yes,
Canada,
I've heard about it, yeah.
It's just like, oh my goodness, the best of the best. I'm a super fan. Are you willing to share the mantra, the idea behind an Open Jar?
Absolutely.
Space?
Yeah. So I got the name Open Jar Studios from a study I once read about fleas. So if you don't know this about fleas can jump like across the room, which I think is kind of disgusting. But I once read this study. The scientists took a group of fleas, they put them in a jar, they put the lid on the jar. And of course, the fleas were trying to jump out, and they kept hitting their heads on the lid of that jar, trying to get out. And they let a week go by. And at the end of that week, the fleas had adjusted the height of their jump. So they were just jumping just under the height of the lid of the jar. Smart fleas, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end of that week, the scientists took the lid off the jar. And what they discovered is that the fleas didn't jump out of the jar. They just continued jumping at that same height. And when I read that study, this was back in my days as an actor, and I went, oh, that's us as artists. So often we hear no so much in our lives that we get used to hearing it and sometimes expecting it. And so when I read that study, I went, if I'm ever going to get anywhere in my life, I just have to jump as though there is no limitation. And yeah, I might hit my head on the lid of the jar, but you never know if you're, interviewing for the job of a lifetime or auditioning for the role of your lifetime. So I figure it's better to just go for it, and the worst that can happen is somebody says no, but they might say yes. So that's why I named this the Open Jar Institute, a place where there's no limitations, a place where you can invent and create and be, inspired and creative. So no limits, that's the idea.
I love that.
Thanks.
I love that. It's such a good story. I wish there was a way to shorten it up and put it on the wall.
Be the flea.
Yeah, be the flea. How long has this been in your mind?
The studios?
Yeah.
It's funny. I never really imagined that I would own or build a studio, but I definitely wanted to build an institute of training, and that's been around for about 15 years. And I always knew that I wanted to, when given the chance, give back to the next generation of artists that are coming, because I learned basically everything the hard way in the business, and I always wanted to just pay it forward to the next generation so they wouldn't have to. And so I always did that, and along the way, as we got busier and busier, and now we're going nearly year round, I just said, I'd want to just have a home for us. And so I started looking for a home, and I wasn't really looking for a big space, but my brokers that were walking me around brought me to this building, which is massive, 50,000 square feet. And I was like, this is amazing. I don't need this much space, but I know people who do. And so at that moment I went, I could put this together. I know so many people. The quest for space here in Manhattan is huge. And so I basically just put together an investment team and gathered partners that were of like mind, that wanted to really create an ideal rehearsal venue so people could really stretch out and properly rehearse. And we'll have, our institute will be over in the corner.
I love this.
Yeah.
And the story of were you here with Susan, and you guys are
I
looking, and
was.
they're like,
because we came to 11, the 11th floor, and it's big, huge, wide open space. They have randomly, this building has a bit, I think it's like 25,000 square foot of it is column free. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. You can properly rehearse a Broadway show. So I brought my friend Susan Stroman to come with me, and I said, check this out. Do you think this is a good idea? So she came with me, and we're looking around. And of course, she was impressed by the size of the space too, but she looked up and she's like, well, the ceiling's not that high. I couldn't really get a girl standing on a table and start dancing around. And so we were talking about that, and the broker overheard us, and he goes, well, there's 2 floors available. Why don't you take 11 and 12 and just knock out the slab between, and then you can have a double high ceiling. And I was like, can you do that? He says, yeah, why not?
it's your space.
It's my space. So that's exactly what we did. So we knocked out the slab. So now we have 22-foot high ceilings. So yeah, it's been really thrilling. And that really, makes it possible for really any Broadway show to come in and do their show. Yeah. So
really any show. I mean, any state. You can really rehearse anything. Any type of production.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we designed it so that it could really, it's bigger than really any Broadway house, and stage. So you can actually have the storage and the wings that you need, and you can have the height that you need. So yeah, it really gives you the opportunity to really, do the show before you move into the theater.
It's freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
It is. And to the date of this recording, you guys just had your grand opening 5 days ago. 4 days ago,
yes, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Moulin Rouge has already come through.
Yeah, Moulin Rouge were our first guests. They actually were a sneak peek. We gave them in our soft open period. They came and they were here for about 5 weeks, and they did all their Broadway rehearsals here. So they've come and gone already. So they helped us break in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have another one coming through or not?
We do. Yeah. Official. No, we have a huge lineup of Broadway shows that are all rehearsing here. Wow. There's one here now, which I can't say the name of, but yeah, we've got a good lineup of shows coming. Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay. So we've gotten all of that there chatted about. I'm curious, growing up in Colorado, was it always theater for you?
Yeah, I was born in Colorado, and then right after I was born, we moved to Utah, actually. So Salt Lake City is where I grew up, basically. And my family are all about sports. All my siblings are sports. And so I, as a result of being a whiting, was in soccer and baseball and basketball. And my mom tells the story when I was 10 years old. She was looking at me on the soccer field, bored out of my mind, because I was no good at it. And she said, I think there's going to be something else for Jeff. And so she, that week, saw in the newspaper an audition for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at the University of Utah. And so she took me to the audition, and I booked the job. I got to play Dopey in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And there, from that moment on, I was hooked. I just knew this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know you could feel that way. And so I thought initially I was going to be an actor, because I was working on stage. And then a few years down the line, I always played piano as well, and somebody taught me how to write chord progressions, and I started writing music. So I then thought I would be a composer and wrote a couple of musicals as a kid in high school. And then when I moved to New York, I did work initially as an actor, but I always knew that I wanted to be a director. When I was 14, I was doing a production of Lanford Wilson's Home Free. And the opening scene of that is it's a long monologue where the boy is at home alone, and he's got imaginary friends, and he's got a lot of things going on. And I was having trouble breaking through, discovering the scene. And the director was like, okay, you're itching behind your left knee, your right ear is twitching. And he gave me like a list of 15 things, and I was like, I can't even remember all those things. He goes, do the monologue now. And I went, and I somehow, that helped me break through and figure it out. And after that rehearsal, I went, I want to do what he does. I want to direct and figure out how to get people to the places they want to be. So I knew I wanted to be a director. But yeah, and growing up in Salt Lake, I knew theater was it for me. I didn't know exactly where I would land, but I definitely knew theater was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Disney.
Yeah.
And how so many people cross through. And
Yeah.
was that your first professional job there?
It
at
was.
school?
Yeah. I was a senior at my university, and I auditioned for Disney. And I think I was the second person in the room. And they gave me a song to learn, and they said, we'll bring you back in. And I thought they'd forgotten about me. The whole day went by, and I was like, oh, I guess they're not interested or whatever. It was a brand new song from a musical called Hunchback of Notre Dame the movie was coming out. And they said, we can't, we have to take you in the room and do it alone. So I recorded it. And in the end, I got hired to play Quasimodo in the Hunchback of Notre Dame in Orlando at Disney World. So that was my first professional job. I literally took my last final at university, skipped the graduation ceremony, and drove over to Orlando to start the rehearsals. So Disney was my first professional job, which was amazing. Yeah. And then from there, I did that show for about a year, then moved to New York. And not long after moving here to New York, I got also asked to be on the original Disney Cruise Line. So I was part of the inaugural cast of that and had an amazing time on that. So I do have a long Disney history, which I cherish very dearly. I'm still a big Disney fan.
Same. I know. I saw the Mickey in the
yes
in your office. The okay. So what was this transition for you? When did it begin consciously to go into directing, choreographing from performing?
Yeah, well, the seed I think was born that day. Working with that director, where I was like, oh, I think I want to do that. Yeah. But I always thought, well, I will continue as an actor, and from that day forward, I really always watched the directors, and I would go, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Oh, I like that. So I feel like my directing style has really been born out of all the things that I've seen people do that work, and also the things that people do that I think don't work. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind. And I think it was when I was working at Disney Cruise Line, I really got more of the urge to be on the other side of the table and just see that I could have that opportunity. And I got some advice from a good friend who's a stage manager at Disney. And I said, I really want to break through and make the transition, and what do you recommend that I do? And she gave me the best piece of advice I ever got. She said, just be in the places where things are happening that you want to be involved in. She said, for example, if somebody's doing a show, email somebody connected to it. Just ask them, can I come in and observe? And just get in the room somehow. Volunteer to help. Do something for free. And she said, just the fact of being in the room, A, you'll get to experience it, but B, somebody's going to say, hey, can you go grab me a cup of coffee? And you do that, and then eventually somebody say, who is that guy? Let's get him in. And so that was the best piece of advice I ever got, just to let people know that you're interested. And so I took that advice to heart, and I was working here as an actor, and I every time I worked with a director, that I enjoyed, I just, would find an opportunity to say, hey, if you're ever looking for an assistant, I would love to assist you. I'll do it for free. And Sam Scalamoni was the first person who gave me a chance. I had worked for him as an actor on a production of Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I mentioned that to him, towards the end of the run. And a couple years later, he called me. He said, I was actually going to call you to see if you could assist me on this project that I'm doing. He said, but as it turns out, I'm not available, so I'm offering you the job to direct the show. And so I went, great.
What? Just like that?
Just like that. Yeah, so I had a great sort of launch into directordom, and of course called all my friends to see, what do I do if I'm the director? And they all, of course, calmed me down to say, you know what to do, you've been doing it, you've seen it all happen. So that was really the first sort of big project that I did as a director. And then I did work at Disney as a director for a long time. For about 2 years, I worked on what's called the Disney Event Group down in Orlando. They do basically shows for corporate events, people that come into the parks, for the weekend or something. So I was a show director for them for about 2 years. And in the 2 years I was there, I did about 40 shows for them. So it was good learning for me as a director to figure out my process and figure out how I create and how I learn to trust my instincts and that kind of thing. So that was very useful.
What had you been learning up to that point about human communication, or how to communicate with different departments, even actors?
That's the key, I think, of directing, is the communication. Because you have a dream, you have a vision of what you might want to achieve as the director, but if you're not successful at sharing that dream with the proper departments, getting them on board with you, then there's no way you're going to be successful. So, you can't force people to do it. So your job, I see my job as the director, is to share a glimmer of what we think this can be, and I hire you, the costume director, to help support that vision, and you, the set designer, to support that vision. And we all kind of head off in the same direction. And does it end up exactly the way I saw it at the beginning? No, but it ends up better because the set designer's doing their craft the very best they can, and the costume designer. So it ends up being better than what you imagined it could be because of the act of collaboration. So I think communication is really the key. Sharing that vision and then checking in with all the departments, so that the designs support that vision. And if it's not going in the right direction, making sure that we get them right back on track.
Yeah. Sorry.
And the same thing is true of the actors. So once you get those designs in place, it's my job as a director to get all the actors and the performers on that boat as well, so that we're all really telling the same story. And every person needs to hear it in different ways. Some people, they just need to see the visual of what it can be. That can inspire them. Some people need the technical aspect of it. Dancers, the same thing. Some people need the counts. Some people need, to know the right, left, right, or some people need to just feel the rhythm. So it's fine. That's my favorite thing as a director, is to see somebody and go, okay, how do they understand? How can I get this message to them? Because everybody has a different process getting to it. So I think that's key.
Yeah, and understanding what their process is as you communicate.
Yeah.
How do you know, or maybe you don't know, when to push a point or let a point go, or a topic or something that you believe in? What does that look like for you?
It's really tough, because you have to decide what's important. So it would be really easy to make everything the most important thing of all, and knee-jerk reaction to be like, no, you're going to do it this way. Yeah. And because of an experience I had early in my career as an actor, I developed this philosophy. I was doing a show, and it's based on a film, and there was one line from the movie and I would get to that moment in the film, in the play, and I would do it, and the director was just not happy with the way I was saying it. And so he brought me in a room, and he would say, I shouldn't say the line because I don't want to reveal who it is, but he would give me the line reading, and I would copy it back to him. No, it sounds like this. And I would try. And so every time, hours went on, and I failed miserably. He was never happy with the way I was saying that line. And for the rest of the run of that show, I was living and breathing that character. But when I got to that moment in the show, I was frozen, failure. I did not do the line. So I was just regurgitating my impression of his line reading, and it wasn't genuine. It was never genuine. So from that, because of that experience, I think it's so important to figure out how to, if the line doesn't sound the way you want it to, maybe there's another way instead of just forcing them to say it. So to answer your question, I think it's what really is important, what might take time to maybe get to where you want it to be. That's where I think it's important to just decide, that's not important right now. What's important right now is this, and then perhaps at some point, you'll come back to that. And as I have witnessed it over the years, that first thing that you notice, if you give it time, generally it will self-correct and get on course. Or maybe I realized, it doesn't matter because it still fits in. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. But it's just deciding what's the important thing to fight for. And you have to fight for the things that are important. You can't just give up. You can't just, blow with the wind and what everybody else says. You really do have to, trust your instincts and go with what you think is important. So I think it's just deciding what is important and what can you give a little more time to.
Yeah. Yes. And I've seen this with the really great directors. They see everything. Everything. Yes. And it's like what to give, voice to or not. Or it's like, some things will come around. It's like what you just said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's hyper-awareness almost in a way.
Yeah, it is.
How did the relationship with Susan come about?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Really, because I'm the luckiest person on the planet.
There it is.
Here's what happened. I had been hired as the associate director of the national tour of Hairspray. And I was working on that production produced by Networks. And while we were in rehearsals, I was just one day sitting chatting with the producer and just shooting the breeze, and he said, we're going to do a tour of the producers. I was, that's amazing. And at some point in our conversation, he said, he goes, well, actually, this would be good for you. Would you want to do the producers too? And I was like, yeah. And because what happened is Susan Stroman wasn't involved with the production, but her right-hand man, Nigel West, who's from London, was going to be the one mounting the production, because he had done it in London. But he didn't know any New York associates. So he had asked that morning the producer, do you know any good associates that I could utilize? So just by luck of the draw, I was standing there talking to the producer at that moment. So he recommended me, and I got hired to do the producer's national tour, which Stroman was not involved with, really, except that it was her stuff. So at the end of that experience, a year later, New Year's Eve, I'll never forget, I got an email, and the subject line in that email said, "From Susan Stroman." And I was like, what? And
Happy New Year.
Exactly. So the email was from her. She said, I just had lunch with Nigel West, and he was singing your praises. I'm working on a new Broadway show, and I'm looking for a new associate. Wondered if you might want to get together and meet about perhaps working together. So it took me like a whole day of typing the perfect response. Yes. So that I met with her a couple weeks later in the new year, and she was looking for an assistant director on Young Frankenstein. And so we met a couple of times, and she hired me. She ended up hiring me as her assistant on Young Frankenstein. And it changed my life, absolutely. It gave me a great opportunity, but also the opportunity to sit next to one of the greatest artists of our time, to sit and learn from her and see her create has been really a true blessing.
What are or were some of the biggest things you were learning from her? What were some of the things you're seeing happen?
I think one of the greatest things that she does is she communicates really, really well. Yeah. She's a great leader. She gives everybody time. She shares the vision, and she gives everybody time to succeed. And, she'll correct you if you're not going in the same direction. She has high expectations, but she creates an environment where it's fun to create, where you want to create, where you want to be a part of this exciting vision. I think one of the pinnacle moments was the first production meeting that I was invited to. So this was, way before. It was a year before we actually went into production, and there was a production meeting, and I walked into this room down at Chelsea Studios. They had, 10 tables all in a row, and I'm looking at a model on one end, and I'm looking at William Ivy Long and the amazing creative team. And my first impression was, oh, this is a group of people who are so joyful. And about halfway through the meeting, I went, of course they're joyful. They're doing what they want to do. Here's William Ivy Long creating the greatest costumes for this big Broadway show. And so that's really thanks to Stroman and the environment that she creates. She provides a place where you can succeed and you will succeed and you find the best. And so I think her communication, her leadership skills are really, really key. And then the other thing that I love and have learned from her is being able to trust your instincts. I've been so blessed to see her create a lot of Broadway shows now, and to be in the room when you don't know what the answer is going to be, and you see her, and she'll be sitting, and she'll have her eyes gaze up to the heavens, and she's seeing something up there, and then all of a sudden she goes, "Okay, I got it." And so to see the moments where this brilliant creative mind clicks is pretty amazing. And I've been able to witness that many, many times. And I think it's really a result of trusting your instincts. Okay, we don't know the answer. Here's an idea. Does that end up being the best idea that ends up on Broadway? Maybe not. But it's amazing to see that it's probably the greatest lesson anybody can learn is to trust your instincts.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
To not react but respond.
It's hard.
To not
yeah.
lose it because
totally.
The time is ticking.
Yeah, absolutely. And to just go, well, I don't know necessarily, but let's try this. And I noticed in myself as a director as well, learning to trust my own instincts, because you don't know if it's going to be good. And so at least my pitfall that I often fell in as a young director, was I don't know if this idea is going to be any good. So if you pitch it like it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Yeah. So what you do is you pitch it okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create this thing. And then maybe that doesn't work, but then at least we've tried something. And then, okay, that might open the door to something else. Yeah, so it's just the ability to trust your instincts. That's one of the key things I've learned from Stroman.
Is there a show you've worked on that's taught you the most about yourself? I mean, they've all taught you something.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one that comes to mind first?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind first is the Scottsboro Boys.
Okay.
Working on the Scottsboro Boys was one of the most eye-opening experiences of my life, for several reasons. One, creatively, it was a challenging piece to figure out how to tell the story. And so, the idea was, all right, we're going to take these 14 chairs, and with these 14 chairs, we're going to build them into a train station and a jail, and there's 27 different locations. So that was an amazing experience in pre-production to go, okay, with these pieces, can we make this? Ooh, if we only had one more chair. So Bailiff Bort, make us another chair. And, so to just be given a box of sand to go, okay, let's just see what can be done and what pieces, if we had just a few more pieces, how could we make this work? Mm-hmm. So creatively, I found Scottsboro Boys to be really eye-opening and, just going out of the box in a way. But then also historically, and socially, it's such a powerful message, to tell the story of these young boys who were accused of a terrible crime that they didn't do, and yet for years were punished, and many of them died in prison as a result. And so to be able to tell their story and bring their story to light and tell the truth about what happened to them was an amazing experience, and it's art, I think, in its highest form, where you're able to shine a light where there never was a light shown before. And as a result of this musical, history was changed. Finally, after the musical, the boys were exonerated of their crime in Alabama, however many years later. Mm-hmm. So it was a social education for me. When she asked me to be involved with the show, I didn't know who the Scottsboro Boys were. I had to Google it and learned about it. And, now to know that, in the history books, it's a small paragraph in the history books, that led up to many, many things. But I was unaware of it. So it really opened my eyes to that, that little slice of American history. And I was thrilled to be a part of shining that light.
I love when a musical or a play can do that, can teach you something.
Yeah.
I was at the opening night of Tony Stone last night. And great show.
Yeah.
Had no idea. I mean, just because it takes place, it has to do with minor league baseball. And just in general, minor league baseball stories aren't told. And then the fact of a female, black woman, female, who played and what they had to go through and endure and what it was to live in that and what we as an audience could learn and open our minds to. Things you just don't even realize are happening or have happened or still happening. So I think it's really incredible that it can be so educational.
Yeah, I think that's what good storytelling does. It, not only entertains you, but also if you can take something out of it and take it and put it in your heart, so you leave different than you started, that's the best thing.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of directing, you've been behind the table, you've seen auditions, you've seen actors work.
Yeah.
Many listeners of this show are younger artists, actors, or directors and whatnot, listen as well. Curious what you've seen in terms of self-sabotage. or just, because people sometimes don't even realize they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, are there things that have come up? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot.
There's so many.
Come...
Yeah, there are. I mean, I kudos to actors today, because it's such a difficult business. And to walk into a room every day and to just put your heart on the line is so difficult to do. And my heart just breaks every time I sit in the audition room quite a bit, and I having been on that side of the table, I remember how it feels. And you just know you're perfect for this role, and it's going to change your life if you only got it. And for whatever reason, the puzzle may not fit together, and it's not because you're not talented or whatever. The reasons are endless and sometimes random that you don't get it. And so my heart really goes out to the actors who are out there doing it every day. In fact, I'm reminded of when I first moved to the city. This was Scarlet Pimpernel #3. And I was up for the final callbacks for it. And I was that guy. I was like, I know I'm going to get this job. I just had this amazing epiphany. And the night before my final callback, I went to stand across from the stage door where the show was going to be playing. And I had this amazing epiphany, you are going to work in this theater. The heavens opened. I was like, this is going to happen. I just knew. So I went to the final callback with so much confidence and went in, didn't get the job. And I was devastated because I just somehow knew the heavens had told me I was going to get it. Fast forward 5 years, when I got hired to be the associate on the Hairspray tour, Matt Lenz, who's the associate director, said, meet me at the stage door, we'll go in together. As I walked up to that stage door, I went, oh, it's that. Now 5 years later, I get to walk into that stage door. The same door. And weirdly enough, the place where I was standing was my office in New York. So I was just standing right across from that. What was my office before I moved to the studios here was my office for 6 years. So I often just wish I could go back to that actor and just say, it's going to be okay. It's going to work out, because it's difficult. But then to answer your question about self-sabotage, what people do in the room, I find that people often try to guess what we're looking for. And they're trying to be... As a result of that guess, they're trying to fit themselves into that puzzle. And in fact, it's better if you don't try to fit. It's better if you just come in and go, this is me. And because it's basically a big puzzle. And I need this piece to fit there. And there's so many different things that you necessarily need. The person who comes through the door and smells of desperation, it's not appealing. And so I sometimes see people, it might be out of, zeal or wanting to please. It comes across desperate. And I find the people that are the most successful in the room are the people who lean back, who are fine with who they are. The person who walks in the room, who likes who they are, and aren't trying to be anybody else but them. That's the person I'm drawn to. I think so many people, I'm coming in and playing for the role, but in fact, I want to see who you are as an artist first. And then, okay, when you do your song, then you can perform. But if you're coming in the room already in character, it makes, I call it crazy flags, the hunt for the crazy flags. Like sometimes your little flag pops up, and it's because the energy in the hallway is so different than the energy in the room. And I think it's if actors ever get the opportunity to just like spend an hour and just sit in the room, you would learn so much, because people come in to high energy, and they're inside the room. We're like low key and chill, and we're just regular people. But in the hallway, there's so much frenetic energy, and so many people bring that energy with them. Hi, I'm Jeff Whiting, and it's too much. Yeah. And so I often recommend to people, before you come in that room, just like find 3 things about yourself that you love. I'm talented. I'm sexy, whatever it is. Yeah. I'm Link Larkin, whatever it is. That you can find confidence in who you are, and bring that person in the room. Also, don't be in a rush. So many people are in a rush to like get out. When you come in that room, you actually have the power. It probably doesn't seem that way from the actor's standpoint, but we're basically just a blank slate. We're just listening to someone come in. So an actor has the power to come in the room and lift the room and like be a bright light in this room. So the second you come in the room, if you're happy with who you are and you bring that with you, not trying too hard, and you sing your favorite song for us, we're going to enjoy that. And you really do have the power in the room. And the entire time I'm looking at you in the room, I'm thinking, can I put the weight of the show on this person's shoulders? That's a big responsibility. So anybody who shows panic or nerves, I don't trust. The person who is like cool with themselves and relaxed and confident, that's the person I trust. So there's a fine line between cocky and confident. And you don't want to go to cocky, but confidence goes much further than anybody believes. It's fascinating to see how when somebody just comes in like they know what they're doing, even if they don't, we trust them more. They get further than they would. Now, of course, the other things play into it. Your type, and you might not be the right type for all that, but that you can do nothing about that. Mm-hmm. But what you can do in this room is bring in an energy about, this is who I am as an artist. And if I don't get this job, that's cool. I got one next door. I'll get my Tony Award next door. Thank you. So if you can have that energy about auditions, I think that's really, really key.
I'm very excited because and I've heard Andrea Burns share the same themes spoken differently, but the same idea of the way you enter the room is like, oh, I just came from something that's, equally big. I'm working here and I'm here. This is what I have to give you. Yep. If you like it, hopefully I can help. If not, good luck.
That's absolutely right.
I got to go back to my show.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, because you'll always book the job when you already have another job. Yeah. Because you don't have that desperation. So if you can somehow, if you don't have a gig currently, trick yourself into that. Just like, I'm just on my break from my big Broadway show, and I'll do the song for you because you begged me to. If you can have that energy and yet be a pleasant person, then it goes so much farther than you would ever believe. It's fascinating to me.
The confidence is power. It's very powerful.
That's true. And when you get to the end, say you get to the final callback, we're choosing between maybe 3 people that are all like the top contenders. The thing that makes the final choice is minuscule, because all 3 of those people could do it. And the discussion usually goes around, okay, and person number 1, she's amazing, so talented. I've worked with her before. She's great. Number 2, I haven't worked with her, but her voice is amazing, killer. Number 3, oh my gosh, she was so funny. Remember when she did the line? That was hilarious. Oh yeah, we all laughed. We chose person number 3, the person who made us feel something. They were all equally talented. They could all do the role, but it was the person who found something personal, made us laugh or made us cry, did it in their own way, that's the person we chose first. Now, over the course of the next 7 years of that tour, all 3 of those ladies did it.
We'll do it.
But the person who got it first was the one who made you feel something. So to me, that's about finding, not doing a cookie cutter performance of what you already saw Sutton Foster do on Broadway. It's, here's my take on this role. And that's what we're looking for. And something personal goes further than you think it will.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to sit behind a table last week,
Yeah.
and I learned so much. Like you said, you learn so freaking much. And Gimme Gimme is still overdone.
Yes.
And I would be so fascinated to see someone come in and not do it like the album. Like that would be, because you roll your eyes when you hear it, like, oh, well, we've heard this one. And then to hear someone do something completely different that makes you feel something. Yeah. All of a sudden you're not so annoyed that you've heard it 500 times because it's different. You felt something.
Absolutely. That's what's important.
The energy.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if we just wanted a cookie, a cardboard cutout of that, Disney could have created a robot years ago, and we didn't need actors anymore. But what they don't have is the heart, and everybody's unique, and everybody's experience is unique. So I think that's where actors have to rely on that. That's why I said earlier, trust your instincts. Like, we need you. We need what you bring to this role. That's what's key. So I think that's important. So in terms of not sabotaging yourself, just trust yourself. Don't panic about everybody else's belting their face off. Just you belt your face off in the way you belt your face off, and don't worry about the others. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad we're capturing this. Now moving to, working on these Broadway shows, are there common themes among top performers that you see in rehearsal spaces? Or in, over each night performing the same show? Because I know we were talking about Christopher Fitzgerald beforehand.
Yes.
It's like always fresh.
Christopher Fitzgerald is brilliant. He's truly brilliant. Yeah, I think that when you're doing a long-running show, Chris and I worked together on Young Frankenstein. I would watch him night after night, and I was always amazed that he was always finding something new, and he wasn't messing around, but he was genuinely finding a new thing about this scene, and it was fresh every single time. I've never seen anybody do it quite like that. He's just a brilliant, brilliant actor. And so, when you're, there's different phases. When you're in rehearsal, it's, there are certain actors who are really, really playful, and let's try a million different things, and there are other actors who, I'm going to try it this way, and is it funnier if I tweak my finger like this, or is it funnier if I tilt my head to the right? And you'll try it 15 times that way, and eventually they find the way they want to do it. Everybody's process is really different. I find that fascinating to see how in the room when you're creating a show, it's really, really different. I think when you're creating a new Broadway show, there's a certain, bravery that's required when you're creating a new show, because there's so many unanswered questions. So when we were creating Young Frankenstein, to watch Christopher Fitzgerald and Andrea Martin play as they were creating the scenes, we didn't know necessarily. We had ideas, and Stroman is amazing. She comes in with a really great plan, but she gives them the freedom to go and just create. So to watch them craft and create their scenes together was really brave. And, some of the stuff was terrible and will never be seen, but you don't know until you get through those first ideas what can be brilliant. And so there is a certain bravery, and it's not just in the leading roles, the ensemble roles. You have to be just as brave. I see sometimes people in new show rehearsals that are waiting to be told what to do. Oh, I don't want to upset anybody, so I'll just wait until she tells me what to do. No, make a choice. Go for it. Those are the people that, when we're creating new Broadway shows, that's the person I want, because I want somebody who's going to help feed the machine and help get the engine going, rather than, oh, let me tell you, now step on your right foot and then go to your left and look to your left and ask the guy. Like, if you can just make those choices, those are the people that you want in the room. So you see that oftentimes people want the team around them that are creative and know how to create. So I think that's a common theme with actors, the successful actors in the room when you're creating a show. It's just the willingness to try stuff, and it could be terrible and could be great, but you don't know until you try.
Yeah. I love that. I love watching a show and looking off, into the upstage right corner and watching someone.
Yeah.
The focus is not on them. They're not in the light, and they're living a full life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's like
It's incredible.
Yeah. It has to be a completed picture. So, even if you look at a painting by Michelangelo, there might be the main focus of the scene, the fingers touching in the middle. But if you look at the people on the side, they're looking and they have a point of view about that, but they're just as engaged as the other. So I think that's important to remember. And certainly as an actor, no matter whether you are the focus of the scene, your job may be to throw focus to the scene. And it's just something, some people just have that an innate sense in them to know how to do that, and some people don't.
Yeah. And it's powerful to see that, because then you're like, oh, I really subconsciously believe everything that's going on because everyone's in it.
Totally. Yeah.
Entrepreneurship. I want to chat about it.
Okay.
What is where did that come from for you? The tenacity to create something that's truly new. I'm thinking of the software that you created, Stage Right.
Yeah.
Open Jar Institute, now these studios. Where does that?
I think it came from my dad. My dad is an entrepreneur. He, out of college, he and his best friend saw a company that was going out of business. It was a bag company. They make backpacks and bags. And he and his best friend out of college decided to buy it. And they made it into a massive company. They made all the gym bags for all the NFL and NBA teams. So he made it really out of a company that was going out of business. He saw the opportunity. So he created a factory, and he has factories all around the U.S. and international. So he created this enterprise. Yeah. And our family in the summer, we had to go and work at the factory. So I think that was my mom and dad's ploy to make sure we went to college so we wouldn't be working in a factory for the rest of our lives. Oh. But I learned a lot about work ethic there. So there was a summer where they would get these giant bolts of fabric delivered to the warehouse, and my job was to sit at the station, put a bolt on the top, and then feed it to the bottom, an empty roll, and I'd have a little pedal. And my job was to watch every piece of fabric, and I would rate if there was a flaw or a color change. And I had to give each one a rating sometime. If it got enough points, it would have to be sent back to the factory. The most boring job you could ever imagine. Yeah. But it taught me a lot about hard work. So I think my dad sort of gave me this idea of entrepreneurship. He never consciously said, oh, you should start your own business. But I think I just always knew that was a possibility. And when it came to Stage Right, I was working on Young Frankenstein with Susan Stroman. And one of the things she wanted me to do was to create a show Bible. And so I was just using a couple different computer programs and drawing tools, I was making a show Bible. And I was like, there has to be a better way to do this. Like, why is there not technology to create this? Because it's not a hard thing to just create charts and drag them around the stage. Right. But I kept looking for software, and I kept thinking of this, why does this not exist? And about that time, on LinkedIn, a buddy of mine from high school popped up, and on LinkedIn, it says what their job title is, and his job title said software developer. And I went, oh. So I emailed him and I said, hey, I have this idea to create a piece of software that would document staging and choreography. I don't know, how would you go about that? So he kind of coached me through the process of, how you would make that happen. And so in the process of talking to him, I just said, you know what, somebody's going to do this, and it might as well be me. Mm-hmm. And so I followed all the steps and hired a company to develop it and create it. And it's been out for about 7 years now. And it's been amazingly adopted by the industry. I think over 80 Broadway shows are using it. We have over 60,000 users worldwide. So it's been wonderful to see that this idea, really, really caught on. But it was just simply out of the need. So I knew that there was a group of people who needed it, the associates on Broadway and stage managers. And so I knew it would catch on with that community, but it's been thrilling to see how it's been caught on really by everybody in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's great.
Thank you.
I've seen it. It's great. No, it's kind of, it's almost laughable. You're like,
No one else thought of this?
It's
No one else
interesting,
did it?
right? Yeah, because all it is just create icons and drag them around the stage where they're meant to go.
great.
Because that's what we do. We create stage pictures, and somebody has to document where everybody is in that picture. And so that's just the method, the digital method that people are using now to do it. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a little bit about Open Jar Institute at the beginning. What is the mission statement of that? The same idea as Open Jar?
it is.
And then what was the, like, why start that?
I really wanted to, because as a young actor, I felt like I had good training. My university had great training. But when I got to New York City, there were so many things that I wish I had known as an actor, or that I could have prepared myself for. So I got here and just so naive, like just floundered through auditions and, did my best. And it wasn't a fault of anybody. I had great training, but there was just business knowledge that I wish I had sort of known. And so I just made the pledge that whenever I could, I would pay that forward to the next generation, just to share information about what it's like if you want to live and work in New York as an actor. Here's what you should be doing now when you're in high school. Here's what you should be doing. Like the business is young. We're looking for the hot new thing. So there's really no time to waste. And so I wanted to just provide an opportunity for people to come and learn from people. All the people that teach at the Institute are all actively in the business and doing it now, because the business changes so much and so quickly. It's important to me that it's people who are actively now doing it, so that people that come, get real information, so that when they get off the bus, from whatever town they're coming from, they'll be a little more prepared for it as well. And we do several different things. We have a summer program, which is gearing up. They're coming this weekend, their first group, and they come and they spend a week here, and they do classes all day. They go see a different Broadway show every night, backstage tours and that kind of thing. And then we do in the fall a residency program, which is geared for people who just graduated college and who come to us, and they spend their first 8 weeks in New York with us, and we mentor them, kind of coach them through their first audition season. Everybody has a mentor or somebody who's in the business who gets to know them and knows their book, knows their wardrobe, and we sit with them and we strategize their audition week. So we go, okay, on Thursday you're going to hit that audition. Let's sing that from your book. Let's wear that. And then when they get the call back, we coach them through their material so that they, in the course of the 8 weeks, get sort of their feet on the ground in New York. And because there's so many things that come up when you first get here. So the residency is another thing that we do. And then another thing that we're beginning this year, now that we have the studios, is a full semester program. So folks can come and they spend a whole semester here. It's college credit, so they can actually spend their whole semester here, training with all Broadway's best, and really get the right information. So that was my goal, really, is to provide not only a good positive environment for them to learn, but also to learn the realities of the business. And it's not sugar-coated. It's not like, oh, wonderful, you're all going to be on Broadway. It's okay, that's not good enough. We got to find a better song for you. It's still working in the positive, but it's working to really help people hone their craft and get better and stronger and better storytellers.
I love that. That's really good stuff.
Thanks.
Oh, it's so good. I completely forgot my next question. So I'll let it marinate for a moment. No, this is really incredible. As we do wrap up here, I have a few more questions left. Do you have favorite books or books you gift, or books on theater or books on life that you've read? Does anything just come to mind? I know I'm putting you right on the spot. Oh, that is a spot.
I don't know.
All right.
A book that I receive all the time is "Oh, the Places You'll Go." That Dr. Seuss book? I've been given that book at least 15 times.
Shockingly relevant.
It is.
Especially the waiting part.
Yes, that's
waiting
right.
for the phone to ring. I'm like, oh yeah, I know, I feel that.
But I've been given that book a lot, and I have found a lot of courage in that book.
That's good.
I find in myself, and maybe other people feel this way too, we all hit points where we just need to be shaken out of our rut. We're looking for signs. We're looking for something. And I find that usually it's the people around me who inspire me. And so if I feel like I'm stuck, I go, sit next to somebody new, and just see what their thoughts are, what their feelings are. And I find that human interaction is key.
Yeah.
But I can't, maybe I'll have to, we'll find a book that we can put a name to on it. But,
I mean, there's tons, so I'm sure that one will come up.
Yeah.
Especially, and I know it happens after we finish chatting. It's like,
that book.
I just went back to my office and saw the whole thing. Do you have any mistakes made that have proved essential in learning? Or, I mean, yes, but
Yeah, sure.
any that come to mind?
Yeah. I think of, this was when I first moved to New York as an actor. I made a terrible mistake. I was cast in a show. This was like downtown. It was just like a off Broadway production. And I was the star of the show and having an amazing time. And I got an audition through my agent. And the audition was like really close to the show time when I was meant to go. And so I was like, oh, I think I can make it, but I shouldn't have. And I ended up not making it to the show on time. There was no understudy. People had bought tickets, and I came, running down the street a half hour after the show had begun. And it was a terrible, terrible mistake to put the producers in that position, to put my fellow cast in that position. That was a horrible thing. And I knew it was, but selfishly I was like, I can make it. Somehow I can make it from Midtown to the World Trade Center in 5 minutes. Of course not. Of course not. And it was just, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was thinking of myself. And I think that was a terrible mistake. And I wish I could have done that one over for sure. So I learned from that you put everybody else first. You are not the most important thing. You are a piece of this machine, but you can't put yourself first. It's a collaborative field. You cannot put yourself first.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I mean, not a great story.
That was a hard one. Yeah, it was a hard
lesson.
one. Yeah.
Because, as actors, of course we're first. We're on stage.
Yeah, and I was like, I'll get there when I get there. But that was terrible. And I wasn't intentionally going to be late, but I did end up late, and that was not acceptable. So.
Yeah. No, because we do all have good intentions, but executed poorly, they become terrible intentions.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that's really, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a word or a phrase, metaphorically speaking, that you would put on a billboard for millions of people to see?
You are enough.
Okay.
That's what I always go back to. Because no matter where you are, no matter how famous you are or not famous you are, you find insecurity. Whether you are at the top of your game, maybe there's the fear of, maybe it's not going to work. And that's okay. Where you are is fine. And you have to make the best of whatever situation you are in. And if you feel like you're at the bottom of the hill and you're working your way up, that's also fine. Where you are, what you are is enough. And you don't have to pretend to be somebody else. You just are who you are. And it's impossible to know what's going to happen. I think back to early in my career this is when I was thinking about taking the job on the Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah.
And on that day, I had been offered 2 jobs. Lucky me. I was offered to play Baby John in West Side Story, and I was offered to play Peter Pan and Young Hercules in the original company of Disney Cruise Line. And all of my New York friends were like, oh, obviously you're going to play Baby John. That's supposed to be coming to Broadway. And hello, that's the perfect thing for you. Yeah. And somehow inside, I was more excited about going to Disney and doing Young Hercules and doing Peter Pan and originating those shows. And so I really didn't listen to my agent, my friends, who all just said, oh no, the smart business thing for you to do is West Side Story, because that's going to come to Broadway and that'll be your Broadway debut. Yeah. And luckily I listened to my heart and I just went, you know what? Something's telling me I should do this. And now as I look backwards, I go, oh, because I did that, This is how I met Diane Paulus, and that's how I became Diane Paulus's associate. And that's what led me to this, and that's what led me to this. And it's impossible to say, had I chosen West Side Story, would I have still done the things that I did? But I can very clearly see when I made that decision to go back and work for Disney, that opened a huge set of doors for me that eventually opened up. And so now it's easy to say, oh, that was the right choice to make. Yeah. At the moment, everybody said it was the wrong choice except for my heart. And so I think you have to trust your instinct and know that you are enough, that what you're feeling is fine. And if you feel like you should do this, then you should do that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to your gut instinct or intuition or whatever, we have different names for it, you don't even need an answer.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain it to anyone.
Yeah.
If it feels right.
Yeah. Yep.
And you see where it takes you.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we've missed on, skipped on, anything else you want to contribute here before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I think I'm great. This has been so fun to chat. Thank you so much.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Jeff Whiting.
You've been listening to Entertainment X, the podcast. You can follow Entertainment X on Instagram at _EntertainmentX_. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join Clay next week for another curiosity conversation on Entertainment X. Thank you for listening.